Previously on Maplestory the novel, Sacred Tears.
What are you doing?
I'm sorry, Rhinne.
Well, that's it then. There's nothing you can do.
I wish there were, good monk.
Rhinne, if you're going to do it, now's the time!
Now tell me again, how you became whatever this is?
I suppose that leaves us. What should we do then?
It's time we talked.
And now the continuation of Chapter 20, Part 2. Will had drawn her heart when she first laid eyes on him when she cleaned the darkness eating his body. Now that she was staying at the temple more permanently, she pursued his companionship more seriously, though it still felt like he wasn't as invested.
I would, but could we do something else?
Rhinne answered, pulling an interested hum from Will as he raised his eyebrows.
Oh? What do you have in mind?
I've been studying the maps, and to the southeast, not far from here, there is a beach with trees bearing a fruit called goldichi. I've seen this beach from the temple's highest spires, but I would love to see it in person with you. If we leave now, we might even be able to see the sunset.
Nodding to her proposal, Will reached into his coat and pulled a leather-bound book from it, flipping pages until he found what he was looking for.
I know what beach you're talking about, and I have a transport spell with enough range to get us there. However, I don't think your father or Mars would allow something like that.
With a growl and a huff, Rhinne pulled away, walking to a window.
I've been here for nearly a year. These walls and most of the Forest of Peace are all I've seen. I know how being a demi-deity can lead to issues here in Eusoria, but I want to see this world beyond the trees and rivers, even if it is only a small part. I want to know what kind of a world I'm supposed to be saving.
Weren't you able to see it from the Temple of Time while you stayed with your mother?
Will asked, putting his book away before walking to the same window and leaning against it.
To see it, yes. I could see the entire planet from the temple, but I still couldn't see it. There is so much out there. Golden deserts, snow-topped mountains, lush valleys, grand cities. I can see them all, but to walk on the ground and experience them, that is what I want more than anything.
Nodding his understanding, Will leaned against the wall to think. He knew what Master Dane would say if he were to ask him for this outing. Even convincing Master Dane to allow Rhinne to be part of the elite force of omen hunters within the Forest of Peace took nearly 3 days. All the same, he wanted to go places beyond the forest with Rhinne.
Please, Will. Just for a couple of hours, and we'll be back before the evening meal.
Begged Rhinne quietly.
My father won't even know we're gone. He hardly knows what happens in this temple anyway, being locked in his lab constantly.
Will tilted his head, cracking his neck as he thought.
Wait here,
He muttered, walking to the temple's living quarters. Turning to the window, Rhinne sighed and watched her reflection in the darkened glass. Minutes passed in a slog of cold molasses as she waited for Will to return. Boredom soon overcame her as she tried to watch the tiny squiggles in her vision. As Rhinne stared, faint whispers began to hiss all around her, almost calling to her. A touch on her shoulder woke her from the trance, and she saw Will returning with 2 other acolytes.
Rhinne, this is Sean and Terry. Sean has been studying the use of light to change one's appearance. With this, he and Terry will be able to take our place here at the temple.
With a joyful smile, Rhinne agreed as Sean weaved the intricate spell over both Terry and Rhinne. Once completed, Rhinne had to shake her head to not confuse herself. The disguise was perfect. Sean then did the same for himself.
Please return before 3 hours have passed. I cannot make the spell last any longer than that.
Sean asked. Will chuckled as he agreed, amused that such a deep voice was coming from what appeared to be his mouth. Taking Rhinne's hand, he opened his book and recited the transportation spell, disappearing in a burst of light. Tossing his cloak to the side, Dane quickly reached for a potion on one of the shelves of his lab, drinking it down in one swallow. Exhaustion overtook him, holding himself upright against the desk while the potion took effect and strength returned to his limbs.
Master, there you are. I was beginning to wonder when you would return.
Mars said, slipping through the door.
I told you that I would return in a while, Mars.
Dane growled, pulling back his shoulders and cracking his back one vertebra at a time.
Yes, but 3 days is not simply a little while. And what of the omens? Have you heard what the clerics and acolytes have found?
Panic ran thick in Mars's voice, becoming thicker with each word he spoke.
I have heard,
Dane replied dryly, standing to his full height and walking to a nearby shelf containing dozens of vials of darkness and one large bottle, which he reached for.
How long are you going to let this go on? These omens are becoming worse than before. Who's to say that eventually the entirety of the darkness will rise?
Demanded Mars. Pulling the stopper from the bottle, Dane held his hand over it. A small sphere seeped out from his palm, dropping into the bottle, followed by almost a dozen more, then jammed the stopper back in once the last sphere had fallen.
You want the darkness to continue this way, don't you?
No!
Snapped Dane, turning back to Mars with wide eyes. A shadow rose behind him, almost like a majorly distorted version of Dane. Mars ready to attack until Dane sighed, seeming to calm himself.
No. I would never want the darkness to build that much. It is becoming worse. I can feel it. But I am so close to the final goal. But I am so close to the final goal.
Turning the bottle end over end and shaking it a few times, Dane unstopped it and poured a vile lump of darkness into his palm. Thick sludge dripped from around it through his fingers, but disappeared into ash before it hit the ground. He set up a few rows of smaller vials with his other hand, pinching off bits from the larger mass and putting them in the vials.
But my daughter is beginning to hinder progress as she learns more about the power of light. Combined with the ultimate light she has cultivated with Will, she is becoming all the more powerful,
sneered Dane, guiding the lump back into the bottle and capping it and the vials.
Master, isn't that what you wanted? For Rhinne to find her ultimate light?
Asked Mars. Dane grabbed the 20 vials and shook them violently, turning the once small lump into dark vapors and setting them on a nearby desk.
Her power is key to destroying the darkness and improving the world. But that power is destroying the omens, leaving nothing for me to use. I need their cores, Mars.
Dane growled, looking back with an almost rage-induced snarl.
But if Rhinne continues as she has, I will never complete the ultimate darkness, and the world will fall. The Aurora must continue to defeat the omens, leaving the enriched cores for me to collect.
Should we then restrict Rhinne from leaving the temple? Her heart is becoming more restless as the months pass.
A trait of our youth that will pass with time. For now, we will simply leave the omen hunting to the other clerics and acolytes.
Gathering up the vials, he walked to the back door, hurling each vial in a different direction, hearing them break against the stones within the forest. Whispers howled in the air after the sound of breaking glass, followed by a shape growing in the dark, sprouting glowing eyes near the tops.
I am so close. To be held back now would be tragic.
But if you continue to enrich omen cores, Rhinne will only further her study of light and grow in power to match them. In time, she will be the only one capable of facing them. It could lead to her death, or worse, her corruption. You are creating the very thing you are trying to eliminate!
Exclaimed Mars, cursing himself for becoming so loud since anyone with a mind enough to listen would have heard him.
I know, but I must have the ultimate darkness. It is a necessary evil, Mars. Without it, we are all doomed.
A haunting whisper echoed around Dane as he tossed the last vial.
Don't let the light we created die with me. Promise me.
I'm almost there, Minadora. I nearly have the ultimate light.
Within seconds, the two of them were standing on soft sands, met by the darkened waters of the ocean as the sun set in the far west.
We missed it!
Rhinne complained, as the last of the sun's rays dipped below the horizon, darkening the sands further. Will chuckled, reaching into his sleeve and pulling a glowing lamp from it, igniting the sands around them with a golden light rivaling the sunset in color.
I brought a twilight lamp just in case.
He soothed, taking the blanket from under his arm and laying it out. Rhinne grinned, sitting beside Will as he set the lamp before them.
We should come back here when the sun is still up so we can see the sunset.
Will suggested, wrapping his arm and another blanket around Rhinne, pulling her close to him in the cooling, salty air.
I'll ask my mother to teach me some time manipulation so that I can extend out moments like this,
Rhinne said, scooting closer to Will and laying her head on his shoulder.
Wouldn't that warp the flow of time?
Will asked.
No. At least I don't think it would. My mother told me how she used that power to extend a moment in time for my father a long time ago. And that doesn't seem to have affected time in any way.
Will nodded, pulling out his small notebook and writing a note, setting it beside them in the sand. For a while, the two of them sat silently, enjoying the salty breeze over the ocean's water. After an hour, Rhinne's eyes became heavier and heavier as the cooling breeze kept her close to Will. But as the skies darkened, a new chill permeated the air around them. It wasn't a chill like the ones felt in winter. This was a chill that spread through your soul and dampened your spirit. It was the chill of darkness. Rhinne held her fist tightly between them as the spell hummed to life in her hand. Will picked up his spellbook, turning the pages until he found a potent sealing spell. Will had learned much about mana-based magic, but his mana reserves were still too low to be of any use. Throwing off the blanket, they began casting at the presence behind them. No sooner had Will started reciting the runes than the presence reached out bony hands and gripped their wrists hard. Collapsed to the ground in agony as the wrist popped under his grip, whispers hissing around them.
Ah, there you are. I wish to have a word with you, young lady,
said the man smoothly. He tossed Will aside with little effort, bouncing across the sand until he collided with a large tree half buried in the sand.
Will!
Rhinne shrieked.
Don't worry, young lady. You'll be fine. For now, I wish your attention drawn.
Golden light buzzed to life in her hands, slamming into the cloaked man and hurling him into the sand. Rhinne sprinted to Will when spear-tipped chains shot out around her, constricting her arms, legs, and neck. Searing pain erupted wherever the chains touched her skin, ash rising from each of the wounds.
Now, as I said, I would like a word with you,
the man said, speaking as though he struggled to contain his rage. The chains pulled Rhinne back to a kneeling position, holding her down within the sand.
Let me go!
Struggling against the grip of the chains only made them coil tighter, digging further into her skin. The man crouched before her, grabbing her chin.
You've been destroying work that is valuable to me. You need to stop and let those you call comrades deal with them. Your power keeps destroying what I need from the omens for my work.
He sneered, the shadow of his cloak covering most of his face.